people use lots of metaphors for novel writing, and very often it tends towards the heroic. They'll say writing a novel is like running a marathon or climbing a mountain. And I do run marathons and I do climb mountains, and it is possible to see similarities between that and writing a novel. But I'm very dubious about the hierarchies embedded in those metaphors. I mean, they're obviously ableist to start with, and they're obviously heroic, and those are activities that have been generally characterised as masculine and totally complicit with imperialism and colonialism and ways of inhabiting land that we really don't want to be joining in with. And I think you can make almost anything into a metaphor for writing a novel, and I've sometimes talked about driving a long distance in the dark. You need to know your destination, you need to know where you're setting off from, but you only need to be able to see your stopping distance at any given moment. But I also really like to think about this with domestic metaphors. Writing a novel is like cooking the dinner. It can be like washing up. It can be like cleaning the bathroom. You know, we don't have to reach for these exotic, heroic ways of thinking. And I think that's very important, because even if you like running marathons or climbing mountains, and I do, you don't spend very much of your time doing that. You will, I hope, spend far more time cooking, doing the laundry, taking the kids to school, cleaning things, than you do on the mountains and running marathons. And I think if we can think about creative practice as absolutely embedded in those small daily acts of care, but also just of work, of presence, of going around being a human being wherever it is that you're going around being a human being, that's so fruitful for us, because that's what we actually do, and that's actually what characters do. You know, there aren't very many novels about climbing mountains and running marathons, and I'm sure you could write a great one. But if you're thinking about relationships, ambitions, love, loss, all the things you might be thinking about, it's usually performed and manifest in small quotidian ways. I think making writing feel new and fresh is about estrangement. And that's a lot of the practice of returning to daily life as an artist, making strange, making yourself strange, making the familiar strange and making the strange familiar. It's about seeing that wall, that plant, that junction as if you hadn't seen it before. Moving away from habit, or sometimes moving into habit, but thinking about it as a practice, as a way of being,